My father, Rabbi Avraham Tzvi Greenwald, was born in the large Polish city of Lodz. When he was only 8 years old, my father became an orphan and was sent to Warsaw to live with his mother's cousin, the famed Torah genius Rabbi Menachem Zemba, who took charge of his upbringing. Time passed. My father grew and matured. When he was 17, in the year 1928, a great wedding took place in Warsaw. The daughter of the Rebbe of Lubavitch was marrying her cousin, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson. The outstanding Torah scholars of Warsaw were invited to attend the wedding, among them Rabbi Zemba, who was honored to go and to take along with him his young ward, Avraham Tzvi. The wedding took place on the 14th day of Kislev, shortly before Hanukkah. On the day after the wedding, Rabbi Zemba and his ward went to the hotel to visit the chassan and wish him well. The bridegroom engaged Rabbi Zemba in a far-ranging Torah discussion, which touched on many subjects. Rabbi Zemba was impressed by the knowledge, sensitivity, and character of the young rabbi. When the visitors were about to leave, Rabbi Menachem Mendel turned suddenly to Avraham Tzvi and said, "There are a few days left until Hanukkah. Do you know why it is a custom in Hasidic shuls to make special parties and farbrengens on the 5th night of Hanukkah?" Avraham Tzvi did not know. Neither did his scholarly uncle Rabbi Zemba. The young rabbi continued, "It happens that the 5th night of Hanukkah can never occur on a Shabbos. This is a sign of great darkness. The 5th candle is a symbol that the light of Hanukkah can light up even such intense darkness. This is the duty of every Jew, wherever he may find himself, whether in Warsaw or in London, to light up even the greatest darkness." The meeting made a profound impression on Rabbi Zemba, and for years to come he often spoke of it. 10 years later, 1938. Avraham Tzvi married and began to raise a family. Then came the Holocaust. Avraham Tzvi's wife and 5 children were killed before his eyes. All his brothers and sisters were murdered. He was the only one in his family to survive the death camps. At the end of the war, he was broken in body and spirit. 1948. After the war, Avraham Tzvi managed to locate an uncle living in Philadelphia and came to America. The uncle tried to help Avraham Tzvi return to life, a normal life, to find a job, to consider marrying again. In time, Avraham Tzvi did meet a woman like himself, a survivor living with her uncle in Toronto. A date was set for the wedding and arrangements were made. Shortly before the wedding, Mr. Koppel Schwartz, the uncle of the bride, decided to take Avraham Tzvi to New York to receive the blessing of Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. The two men entered the Rebbe's room together. When Reb Koppel told the Rebbe that Avraham Tzvi was a Holocaust survivor and that his whole family had been wiped out, the Rebbe's eyes filled with tears. Then the Rebbe blessed the young man to build a family and live a long life. Before leaving the room, Avraham Tzvi told the Rebbe that he had been at the wedding of the Rebbe's daughter in Warsaw 20 years earlier. The Rebbe's eyes lit up. "Since you were at the wedding, you ought to visit my son-in-law downstairs." Reb Koppel and Avraham Tzvi went down to the office of the Rebbe's son-in-law, who immediately recognized Avraham Tzvi and began to ask about his illustrious relative Rabbi Zemba. He'd heard that Rabbi Zemba had been killed in the ghetto, but still wanted to know any details that Avraham Tzvi could supply. Then he said, "Since my father-in-law the Rebbe told you to come to visit me, I must share with you a concept in Torah. We are now in the month of Kislev, close to Hanukkah. It happens that the fifth day of Hanukkah can never occur on a Shabbos. This represents a great darkness. The fifth candle thus symbolizes the great light of Hanukkah, which can light up even such an intense darkness. It is the duty of every Jew, wherever he may find himself, whether in New York or in London, to light up even the greatest darkness. Avraham Tzvi was stunned. It was extraordinary. The words of the Rebbe's son-in-law were almost the same words he had said 20 years before in the hotel in Warsaw. What could it mean? Avraham Tzvi liked Toronto, and after his marriage he decided to settle there and begin life anew. It happened that the members of the community in which he lived tended to be critical of Lubavitch, but Avraham Tzvi taught his children always to respect Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, the Lubavitcher Rebbe. In 1969, Avraham Tzvi's eldest child, Moshe, became engaged to be married, and before the wedding, the father took his son to New York to receive the Lubavitcher Rebbe's blessing, just as he had received it. Many people seeking advice and blessing came to see the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Early in the morning, the Greenwalds finally entered the Rebbe's room. Avraham Tzvi gave the Rebbe a letter with the names of his family on it. The Rebbe gave a smile of recognition. "It is more than 20 years since you were last here, when my father-in-law sent you to me." Then the Rebbe read through the note and gave his blessing for the young couple to establish an eternal Jewish home. He blessed Avraham Tzvi with a good long life. Outside, a long line of people were waiting to see the Rebbe. The secretary appeared and knocked on the door, but the Rebbe waved him away with his hand. Finally, the Rebbe said, "Just as you attended my wedding, so may God give you strength to be present at the wedding of your own grandchild." Avraham Tzvi was very moved. "Rebbe, may I be so bold to ask you about a subject that has been bothering me?" The Rebbe smiled. "Since the Rebbe, my father-in-law, sent you to me, I must answer all questions." Avraham Tzvi continued, "I live in a community in which people often criticize Lubavitch. They say, how can Lubavitcher Hasidim associate with people who are not observant? How can they put tefillin on people who are not religious? The Torah says, 'Whoever hates you, O God, I will hate them.' Rebbe, I do not mean to criticize. I just want to understand and to explain to others." The Rebbe answered quietly, "No doubt your neighbor who spoke this way to you is very religious. But suppose his own daughter would abandon Judaism, God forbid. What would he do then? Would he still say, 'Whoever hates God, I will hate them'? Would he sever relations and never want to see her again? Or would he try to bring her back to a Torah life? Of course, his own daughter is different. The Torah says, 'Do not turn your back on your own family when they are in trouble.' In God's eyes, every Jew is as dear and precious as an only child. To my father-in-law, the Rebbe, every Jew is a relative who cannot be ignored." The Rebbe then looked at Avraham Tzvi and his son and said, "We will conclude with a blessing. It is known that Hasidim make celebrations on the fifth night of Hanukkah. The reason is the fifth day of Hanukkah can never occur on a Shabbos. This represents great darkness. The fifth candle is a symbol of the great light of Chanukah, which can light up even such an intense darkness. When you light up his or her soul, then even the Jew who is furthest from Judaism, in the darkest of places, can be awakened, wherever he may find himself, whether in Toronto or in London. Every Jew is a part of God above, just like an only child. Avraham Tzvi was taken aback. The Rebbe was repeating things from 20 years before and 40 years before. Amazing. Amazing. 10 years later, 1979, Avraham Tzvi's youngest son became engaged to a girl from London. The family was flying there for the wedding. Minutes before the family's departure, a neighbor came in very upset. He had something urgent to discuss with Avraham Tzvi. His daughter had run away to marry a non-Jewish boy. It seemed she had fled to London. The neighbor begged Avraham Tzvi to find his daughter and save her life. Throughout the trip, the man's request weighed on Avraham Tzvi's mind. The day after the wedding, Avraham Tzvi told the father of the bride about the girl. "I have a friend who might help," the man replied. "He is a Lubavitcher, a truly remarkable person, Rabbi Avraham Yitzchak Gluck. If anyone can help, he can." Immediately they called Rabbi Gluck, and he went right to work. He called the girl's parents in Toronto to get information and clues about how she could be located. Some days later, Avraham Tzvi received a call from Rabbi Gluck. "Come right away. I have a surprise for you." Avraham Tzvi hurried to Rabbi Gluck's house. "Please come in." There in the living room was a young woman crying bitterly. It was his neighbor's daughter, the very girl they had been looking for. Apparently, Rabbi Gluck had succeeded in locating her and had somehow touched her heart. She was ready to return home. Then, to his amazement, Avraham Tzvi Greenwald saw by the doorway a chair. On it, a Hanukkah menorah. 5 candles still burning. Words flashed through his mind from 10 years back. 30 years. 50. The 5th candle of Hanukkah symbolizes the strength of the light of the menorah. It is the duty of every Jew, wherever he may find himself, whether in Warsaw, in New York, in Toronto, or in London. And if your religious neighbor's daughter were to leave Yiddishkeit, what would he do? In God's eyes, every Jew is as dear and precious as an only child. He felt he had to let the Rebbe know. The following Tishrei, he flew to New York to do so. He was told that it was no longer possible to see the Rebbe privately as in previous years, but that he could join a group of visitors who were going to have Yechidus, a private moment. When it was his turn to pass by the Rebbe, he briefly told the story. The Rebbe smiled. Yes, my father-in-law, the Rebbe, had a far-seeing look. His words took Avraham Tzvi by surprise. The Rebbe was giving all the credit to the previous Rebbe, as if he had foreseen everything, when so many years ago he had sent Avraham Tzvi to his son-in-law. Winter, 1989. The eldest granddaughter of Avraham Tzvi got married, and Avraham Tzvi rejoiced at her wedding. At the conclusion of Sheva Brachos, my father, Reb Avraham Zvi Greenwald, at the age of 77, passed away on the 14th of Kislev, exactly 60 years to the day since he had attended the wedding in Warsaw.
Yeshua